Kind of part and parcel of the university itself. Our students come from all over Virginia and from all over the U.S. and from all over the world. So everyone's dealing with new cultural divides. It's an interesting phenomenon. So we work very hard in our just general orientation to mix students. International students tend to have the latest orientation session, but even in that there will be regular students. And then the living situation is everyone is mixed in living. The student activities bring together students outside of the classroom and all the clubs. And of course in our classes, students are mixed. So I also teach, and it's always, I teach on international relations. It's always interesting to me when we'll start a class and someone will say, well, our approach in the world, and I stop and I say, who is our? Well, you know, the United States. And I said, we're not all from the United States. And okay, so people raise your hands, those who were raised outside the United States. This includes Americans as well, because we have many children who have been raised in military or diplomatic families or business families that have lived overseas all their lives. It's a quarter to a third of the hands. So we try to take advantage of that, and in the curriculum as well. Different classes will mix international students, domestic students. You know, you try to get leverage off the diversity. But in the mixing of the undergraduate experience, the different streams come together. So initially you'll see, let's say, the Chinese students will all be walking around with the Chinese students. Well, if we had signs on them that said Northern Virginia, you'd see all the Northern Virginia students walking around with the Northern Virginia students. Over time, those groups interweave, so there's a whole community, literally by the end of the first year, but certainly by the end of 4. Yeah, we've got both language programs and what we would call full area studies programs. So people might come to study Urdu or Hindu, both languages we offer. And they also are able to study the history, the politics, the literature, the anthropology, keep going, name your field, of South Asia. So if South Asia is the focus, there's certainly opportunities to do that. We have a program on Russia and Eastern Europe. So generally there's a grouping around each major area. You know, Latin American studies, there's a group interested in Africa. So we try to represent strong languages and cultural resources and areas, but we also are trying to integrate those with functional areas. So people who are studying business or engineering or economics, how do you bring together that cultural knowledge with people studying problems that cross cultures? That's the synthesis and mix we're looking for. So we have financial aid for study abroad programs, and we have different types of study abroad programs, from short-term to semester to even year-long programs. And generally, there is a study abroad program that can be afforded within the budget you have to study at the University of Virginia, almost all cases. Now, in some cases, there are very expensive study abroad locations, so sometimes you might not be able to go to London if you're on a particular budget. But you can always find an interesting location. We've never had, I think, a student who said, you know, I just can't find something I want to do, who's interested in education abroad. So there's a very rich array of choices, and almost always within the kind of financial package available. And we're quite intent, looking forward, on making that a signature feature of the University of Virginia, that no matter what your means, you can find a study abroad program for you. And that's something we're working to raise funding for. We have a very high study abroad rate. Close to 40% of our students study abroad at some time at the university, and that puts us in the top 25 of all universities in the United States. I should say one of the distinctive features of the University of Virginia is self-governance. So the students run their own judicial system, they run their own, all of the clubs are self-run. At the University of Virginia, there are no official tours. I should say the official tours are all given by students who they themselves decide what they're going to say. So the funding of the clubs is, there's a student fees, and those are then, a lot of those go to supporting clubs. So they apply for certain funds, there's a budget process, and each club, depending on their circumstances, may get a share of those finances. They also may have club dues. Club dues are generally not exorbitant, and they're usually meant to accommodate everyone. Some clubs generate their own funds. I'm the faculty advisor of something called the International Relations Organization, and that they do model UN conferences. So they run a huge model UN conference for high school students from around Virginia. They raise a lot of money. I'm amazed at how much they make. They manage that and they distribute it, trying to do good things with it for others and for their organization.